Hopefully by now you'll sense a trend in what we're about to do here. We talked about another new technology, accessing databases. And what we're going to do is we're going to hide away that technology from the rest of our application through a concept known as the data access object. So we talked about this, hopefully talked about this, in dealing with file I/O, that it's full of all sorts of dirty stuff. In Java applications, we have nice, clean data objects. We have objects, we have attributes, we have exact representations of how I want to display this information inside of my nice, clean Java model. The real world isn't pretty. I have files, I have IOs, I have databases, I have JDBC, I have all this technology that gets me to that data. As we just saw, when I pull back information from a database, I have to map it. I have to make sure it's the right type. I have to validate it. I have to make sure it's there. I have to format queries. I have to put string manipulations. I have to deal with database issues. But I do have to mix the two. I can't build an application that just deals with databases because I need pretty screens. I can't deal with applications that just do pretty screens because where do you get the data for those pretty screens? And so we want to keep, as much as we can, a separation between the nice clean Java code and the dirty data access logic, because business logic can be complicated enough. I mean, I have to load data, I have to validate data, I have to add things and move things around and validate insurance plans and make fantasy football trades and slay bad guys and all the different things I do inside of code. Display logic can be tough on top of that because I have to get sounds right and videos right and moving things and screens right and the color the correct way and masking certain things and all that sort of stuff. And then we throw on top of that the need to get your queries structured properly, to make sure data is inserted correctly, there's referential integrity, to make sure I am pulling data back properly with the proper efficient queries that are going on inside of there. And you put all that together, it can be way more than you want to be able to handle all at once. You really want to be able to go through and focus. You want to be able to get in some nice pieces inside of there. And that's what we are going to do with our solution. So our data access object is a nice wall between our clean code and a nice clean interface that we're going to build, and then have all the implementation details down below that deals with files or JDBC or SQL or exception handling or all that sort of stuff. We basically wrap it up into my job is to display stuff on the screen, and when I want to go retrieve something, I call a method that says get me a person based off of their first name, and you pull that back. I don't want to have to figure out select star from person where name is like blah blah blah. That's not that it's difficult, it's just that's not what I'm doing right now. I mean, could you imagine if basically every time you wanted to write a paper for a discussion board, you had to start with writing the code for being able to interface with a website. Then you had to write the code to be able to interface with the database, and then you had to write the code to be able to update the database. That's the same type of thing. I mean, you want to just be able to type a discussion board, hit save, and be done with it. We want our code to be equally efficient in its use of time, or you can call it lazy either way. On top of that, though, by creating a data access interface, a data access object, I allow many applications to get access to the same data and have the same level of control and exact same component over the top of that. So whether I'm building a Swing app, a web app, a mobile app, web services, that data access object becomes a place where I can control how data is added to the database and how data is mapped back from the database and represented in my system. It ensures that my objects are loaded consistently and they're saved consistently all the time. And so the next little bit of a demo is going to be about building this data access object, and then how do we integrate that into a larger Swing application. Now, there's going to be a lot of demos out there. There's about a lot of pieces that you're going to be looking at because there's a lot of different aspects to dealing with databases. But fundamentally, by building this little interface, I can have all those different pieces built independently by different people, or I can do it all myself a little bit at a time, one slice at a time, but have it all come together in the end because I have a nice clean design of this is what the user interface does. This is what my business logic does. This is what my data access does. And then I just integrate these pieces when they're all ready, when they're all tested, when they're ready to go. So that's my challenge for you: is don't just build this code. Just don't get database stuff working. It's good enough if you want to get by there. But if you want to be a real good coder someday, and even if you don't want to be a good coder someday, if you want to be a good IT worker, you should understand the concepts of good design and how we apply these concepts into realizing our systems. So have fun with that. Jump into some demos, time to get busy, and really go off and put this stuff into action.